Friends, welcome to this lecture on science, technology, and politics lecture series. Today, we are going to talk about very interesting theme. So the title of this lecture is Scrutiny, Orwellian surveillance in the tech age. Friends, it was in 1949 June. 1949 June, famous English novelist George Orwell, whose pen name was Eric Arthur Blair, published his magnum opus. He had published 9 books, but the book last he published, that is his final and 9th book, 1984, a novel. That was the title of the book, 1984, a novel. In this book, George Orwell thematically presents a society where mass surveillance prevails. So Orwell was referring to totalitarian political systems, Stalinist Russia, Nazi Germany. In this novel, which was published in the year 1949, he talks about an imaginary society which was created in the year 1984. Roughly 4 decades after the publication of his book. What would have happened in the world? So in this novel, he presented Great Britain as Airstrip 1. And Airstrip 1 or Great Britain has become a totalitarian superstate. And he called that superstate Oceania. And Oceania is ruled by the party, P-A-R-T-Y. The party is the ruling incumbents in Oceania, the party. And according to Orwell, in Oceania, the party employs thought police system. And thought police persecute independent thinking. You are not supposed to engage in independent thinking. And those who engage in independent thinking will be persecuted by thought police. And Big Brother. Big Brother was the leader of the party. Party is the ruling incumbent in Oceania. And Big Brother, the leader of the party, enjoys a cult personality. And the protagonist of this novel was Winston Smith. And Winston Smith secretly hates, keep in mind, secretly hates, that word is important because in Oceania, thought police is persecuting all the people who are thinking independently. So look upon the imagination of George Orwell. So Winston Smith was secretly hating the party, and he was dreaming of a rebellion against the party. And friends, Winston Smith entered into a forbidden relationship with his colleague, Julia. And friends, this novel, 1984, gives us so many keywords which are so much relevant in the age of technology. For example, the word Orwellian is a popularized adjective which is commonly used in the modern world to refer surveillance. So keywords like Big Brother, double think, thought police, thought crime, that thinking independently is a thought crime, newspeak, memory hall, 2 plus 2 is equal to 5, 2 plus 2 is equal to 5, or proles. Friends, these are keywords we can use in order to understand surveillance in the technology age. I can quote a few sentences from George Orwell, 1984, for your reference, so that you can understand what might be the scenario of a society in which we are unnecessarily being observed by someone. A party member lives from birth to death under the eye of the thought police. Even when he is alone, he can never be sure that he is alone. Wherever he may be, asleep or awake, working or resting, in his bath or in bed, he can be inspected without warning and without knowing that he is being inspected. Nothing that he does is different, is indifferent. His friendships, his relaxations, his behavior towards his wife and children, the expression of his face when he is alone, the words he mutters in sleep, even the characteristic movements of his body are all jealously scrutinized. Not only any actual misdemeanor, but any eccentricity, however small, any change of habits, any nervous mannerism, that could possibly be the symptom of an inner struggle is certain to be detected. Friends, this paragraph, sourced from 1984 of George Orwell, is indicative of a society which is going to come in the future. That was written in the year 1949. But, friends, this scenario has already appeared. Our generation is increasingly being observed or scrutinized by so many agencies, particularly the state. But we don't know that we are being observed. And we are unaware. And all our activities, mannerisms, thoughts are being, scanned by the state because technology has developed. And friends, power does not need to be violent or threatening always. Power can be gentle and very tender. Some power is so much subtle, which is somehow almost invisible. Some type of power is almost invisible in society. We don't know that there is power, but we are being subjected by that power. But we don't know that it happens. Often the weak are not even aware that they are being dominated by someone strong. Sometimes the weak do not know that they are being dominated, but they give, consent to that. They welcome that. So by surveillance, friends, by surveillance, you may make sense that it is not only just visual observance. Surveillance is any way of gathering, storing, processing and processing of information about someone else with or without their knowledge. Friends, in the future, surveillance will become the norm in society. With machines, not by humans, surveillance will become the norm in future. And friends, those who gain control of the means of surveillance, those who have the technology to conduct surveillance, those who have the instruments to conduct surveillance, will enjoy great power in society. And those of you who do not possess the means of surveillance will become the weak in the future. Friends, why surveillance? Surveillance, friends, between surveillance and power are twofold, and they are very closely related. Surveillance and power are so closely related. So by surveillance, surveillance helps someone to gather information for development of power. Surveillance help you gather information. Surveillance help you gather information which will help you improve your own power. So this is, of course, an auxiliary function of surveillance. That is, you are gathering information about someone which you can use against them. Why do we gather information about someone? We gather information about someone because which we can use against them in future. So it's a type of domination. But this is an auxiliary function of surveillance. Then, friends, there is a second function of surveillance, disciplinary function. Disciplinary function. What is auxiliary function of surveillance? The auxiliary function of surveillance is very straightforward. Friends, the more you are able to get information about someone around you, the easier for it to you to subject them to your power. Whether in the form of force or coercion, influence, authority, or manipulation, you can subject other person to your power through surveillance. For example, if Sheetal wants to get Safa to do something that Safa might not otherwise do, Sheetal's task will be easier if Sheetal knows a few things about Safa, such as where Safa goes, what Safa does in order to earn money, what property Safa owns, the people with whom Safa associates, talks, communicates, what Safa likes and dislikes, what Safa fears, whether Safa has a family, and so on. Friends, why these kinds of information are being collected by Sheetal? Because Sheetal wanted to dominate over Safa. It's possible by collecting so much of information about Safa, thereby Safa can, Sheetal can some way control Safa. With this information, Sheetal can best use the carrot or the stick. Carrot means rewards, bribes, inducements. Sticks means threaten, sanction, or deprivations. So this way, friends, knowledge is not itself power. Knowledge itself is not power. That is, Sheetal collecting information about Safa itself is not power. But it is conducive to it. That it helps Sheetal to dominate over Safa by way of collecting information. Simply information doesn't warrant a certain power to Sheetal, but it helps her. Friends, there is another dimension to surveillance that is called disciplinary function of surveillance. What is disciplinary function of surveillance? The second function of surveillance is disciplinary. Friends, simply knowing that we are being observed by someone makes us behave very differently. Right? You just imagine that you are being observed by someone else. Then your behavior changes. Your natural behavior changes and you will become artificial. It makes us, friends, it makes us that somebody observe us makes you less likely to do things which are perceived to be shameful or sinful or wrong in the society. You will never do, shameful things or sinful things or wrong things if you are being observed by someone else. For example, the child who knows her mother is watching is less likely to reach for the forbidden cookie jar. The renegade or the dissent or the rebel who knows that his or her seditious letter will be read by government spies. Think twice before sending that seditious letter to someone, because sending a seditious letter will be read by a government spy. Friends, a person in our society who very well aware that googling with the word child porn will get you automatically reported to the law enforcement agencies, will never search for the keyword child phone on Google. You will think twice or thrice before doing that. The would-be terrorist who knows that security agencies are tapping billions of phone calls every day is less likely to use a smartphone to plot an attack. So friends, surveillance got the disciplinary function as well as auxiliary function. Therefore, the second one, disciplinary function of surveillance or scrutiny. Surveillance, you can otherwise say scrutiny. So surveillance leads to self-disciplining. So self-disciplining was an idea created by Michel Foucault, the French philosopher. Foucault rejected the notion that power was limited to the state. Instead, Michel Foucault developed the idea of disciplinary power. How you generate disciplinary power in society is possible by way of constant surveillance. And constant surveillance is the best form of power. You need not to use force or threaten or coerce someone else in order to prevail over them. You simply do some kind of surveillance. So such disciplinary power attained through surveillance without using brute forces reaches into very grain of individuals, touches their bodies, inserts itself into their actions, attitudes, their discourses, learning process, and everyday lives. So it is very powerful. If you constantly observe someone, you will become very powerful in society. So, Foucault used Jeremy Bentham's famous idea of panopticon. So panopticon is a prison being imagined by Jeremy Bentham in his writings. It's a type of prison in which, each person in the prison is constantly watched in an apparatus of total and circulating mistrust. Writes Jeremy Bentham in Panoptic Society. Friends, in a panoptic society, that a panoptic society is a prison society, a society just like a prison. And in the prison, everybody knows that they are being watched by the other person. So in a panoptic society, friends, there is no need for arms. And we already are living in a panoptic society because we are being watched by everybody else. There is no need for arms in a panoptic society. There is no need for arms, physical violence, material constraints. Just a gaze. Just a gaze. Look at the powerful word he used. Just a gaze. An inspecting gaze. A gaze which each individual, under its weight, will end by interiorizing to the point that he is his own overseer. Each individual thus exercise the surveillance over and against himself. Friends, the point is very clear. If you live in a panoptic society and you are aware that you are being watched by everyone else, friends, what happens? You will oversee yourself. You will start scrutinizing yourself. Clear? If you are aware that no, you are living in a panoptic society, a prison society, where each person is being observed by every other person in that society, friends, what happens to you? Friends, you will never have your own self. You will behave highly artificial because you will oversee yourself. And you will exercise surveillance over yourself. You will exercise surveillance against yourself. So friends, if you imagine a stage, this scenario, we can use this scenario with respect to state. That what happens if state is observing us? And we already know that in our generation, technology has expanded phenomenally. Technology has expanded phenomenally because we are living in a digital life world. And friends, in the digital life world, surveillance takes place in 5 important areas. Surveillance takes place in 5 important areas. Audible? Am I audible? No? Okay. Okay, friends, what I said was that in the digital age, there are 5 very important features to state surveillance. First one is that all individuals are scrutable. Second is that all surveillance is intimate. Third is that all surveillance is imperishable. The fourth point is that all surveillance is predictable. And fifth point is that all surveillance is rateable. And friends, let us examine these 5 points and I will wind up this lecture. First point, scrutability. Friends, in his famous book, in Seeing Like a Stage, published in the year 1998, author James C. Scott, a professor of political science at Yale University, argues that any significant effort to change the structure of human society, that if you want to change the very structure of a human society, depends largely on society being legible to its rulers. What is meant by the word legible to its rulers? That means everything in the society may be known to the rulers. So if you imagine a state, you just imagine a state where there is no reliable means of enumerating and locating its population. That you are living in a state, and in that state, your state has no idea about you. The state has no idea about your name, your location, or your other details. The state don't know your gender. State don't know your caste, your race, the language you speak. State has no information about you. So there is no reliable means of enumerating and locating the population, gauging the wealth of that population, mapping its land, resources, settlements. So it's a crude society, friends. It's a very crude society. You can say a primitive society. Friends, score opposite to this, you imagine you are living in a society where exists a powerful means of enumerating and locating population. Friends, in the digital world, human life will be uniquely scrutable and therefore uniquely susceptible to power of the state. More and more of our actions, utterances, movements, your relationships, friends, your emotions, your belief systems, your ideology, these are, permanently tracked. Friends, the last couple of years, since 2010, there has been an explosion in the amount of data gathered about us by our state. Why? Because most of us use digital technologies. Most of us use some kind of technologies, not only digital technologies, your refrigerator or air conditioners, your grinding machines. Friends, these are all, in the days to come, these will be internet enabled. So internet of things will happen. So friends, in the days to come, it's already, appeared, friends. There is no need to say in the days to come. It already happened. There will be a radical increase. There will be a radical increase in the amount of, surveillance you are going to be subjected. Friends, where you go, what you do, what you buy, what you write, what you eat, what you read, when and where you sleep, what you say, what you know, whom you know, what you like, and how you work. What are your plans? What are your ambitions? Friends, all these things will be scrutinized. All these things will be tracked by the stage. It will be tracked, it will be captured, it will be processed not by humans, it will be done by machines. So James Scott, in his 1998 book, Seeing Like a Stage, gives us so many examples of this scenario. He says, first you think about cities, for example. Cities, for example. If you look at a map of a settlement built in the Middle Ages, he was inviting us to imagine something. In the Middle Ages, you just imagine the map of a Middle Age city. Friends, James Scott is saying that you will more likely seeing tangled jumbles of streets and alleys with no fixed system of street naming or numbering. The street in which you are walking has no, numbers, no names at all if you are living in a medieval age city. So the layout seems to have sprouted organically. It's not artificial. The layout of the city was developed organically. It's not, man-made layout of the city. There is no fixed plan to the city. The city space is confusing in the medieval age. Friends, it will be very difficult for an outsider to walk through that city. For example, if the tax collector of the state, medieval state, if the tax collector of the medieval state walks through that city to collect land tax, it will be very difficult for that tax collector to collect tax from the city delays. Because city has no street names, street numbers, or layout, anything. And the state don't know anything about that medieval city. To find people, to find their addresses, a tax collector will need the help of a local resident. Why, friends, in the medieval age, urbanites or urban people wanted to evade the reach of power, particularly the reach of state? Friends, such settlements of the medieval age were inscrutable for the authority, because people wanted to evade the attention of power. But friends, in modern day, in our time, modern cities are highly scrutable. Contrast to this kind of a medieval city, you imagine a city like Philadelphia, Chicago, or New Delhi, New York. So these cities are built into a single design with long straight lines arranged in grids, interesting angles. These settlements, urban settlements, are immediately, tracked. And friends, now we have smart cities. So government is proposing ideas about smart cities. You may remember reading from, newspapers. So smart cities embedded with dense networks of sensors that allow the state authorities to keep track a dazzling array of variables in the city, from noise, from temperature, the light, the air toxicity of the environment, people, their activities, transport, vehicles, automobiles, people. No, friends, in the future, technology will allow your state to monitor events and incidents. So, friends, you just imagine people living in a smart city. Just imagine what happens to people living in a smart city, which has so many surveillance equipments like smart sensors. Most of us, friends, for example, James Scott in his book Seeing Like a Stage say that until the 14th century, most ordinary people in Europe did not have a permanent, second name. Did not have a permanent second name until the 14th century in Europe. One name would generally suffice to be identified in the local area. Only one name will be in that area. And if more were needed, a person might add their occupation along with their name, such as Smith, or Baker, or Taylor. Or someone, suppose if there are, one or two persons with the same name in a location, they will add another second name to their first name with the location, such as hill or wood, or personal characteristics such as strong, short, small, or father's name such as Robertson, son of Robert, means son of Roberts. So Scott invites us to imagine the pain of a working tax collector of the state who was walking across that city to collect tax. So it's very, very difficult for friends. It will be very difficult for a local tax collector to collect tax from people. So friends, the introduction of surnames was almost universally was the interest of nation state. It was the interest of the nation state that you should have a second name, a surname, so that you are easily tracked. You are easily subjected to scrutiny by the state. So Qin dynasty in China in 14th century imposed a second name to its citizen so that you are more easily scrutable. Hundreds of years later, friends, we still bear our surnames as instruments of scrutability. Friends, interestingly, for example, Nazi regime replaced the names of inmates with numbers in Auschwitz and Birkenau. In Auschwitz and Birkenau, Nazi regimes replaced the name with the numbers, with a 5-digit number, and you will be known by the number, that is, tattooed onto the forearm of each, Jewish inmates. And friends, in the tech world, you are even more scrutable than before. Where we can't be identified by our biometrics. Suppose if the state is not able to identify you with your biometrics, your identity will be easily discovered by the state from the digital world. So a genocidal government, for example, round up all the people of a particular religion or ethnicity in a given area. It's very easy for a genocidal government to track the information of a particular, religion or ethnic identity. The data is immensely available on digital space. Your Google search result, your social media post, your people you communicate on social media, your smartphone movements, call records, all these will be scrutinized by the state. So, for example, using only people's like on Facebook, just by scrutinizing your likes on Facebook, researchers say they are able to guess a person's sexuality 88% of the time. 88% of the time, researchers say that just by looking at the likes you give, they say that they are able to identify your sexuality, whether you are a straight or not, whether you are a gay or lesbian or transsexual or bisexual. The researchers are able to identify 88% of your sexuality just by looking at your likes. And friends, they again say that your race can be easily identified 95% of the time just by looking at your likes, Facebook likes. And your political party affiliation can be easily tracked 85% percentage of the time just by looking at your Facebook likes. So friends, it is important to understand that individuals and their scrutability in the future will not be limited to identifying only your whereabouts. Rather, in the future, surveillance will be an attempt to understand your lives, your desires, your plans, your purpose, your thoughts. So a predictive policing system, a predictive policing algorithm, for example, police develop predictive policing algorithm. A predictive policing algorithm will look at your data and ask, is this man or is this girl likely to commit a crime? Just by looking at your Facebook behavior, a predictive policing algorithm can identify whether you commit a particular crime or not. Or a mortgage lending algorithm will probe your data from different angle and will be asking, are you someone who pays your debt? So your bank will be tracking your Facebook or social media behavior and will predict whether you are a person who makes any default in loan payment. Based on your in that track history, that data collected through tracking, your chance of getting loan is decided. So security agencies, they have developed algorithm which they will use against you to identify whether you are a terrorist or not. A marketing algorithm, for example, will look at your online behavior and identify whether you are a millennial and gives you advertisements accordingly. So in the past, friends, inscrutability of human life was seen as a protection against the overseeing power of state. In the past, inscrutability, that the state is not able to scrutinize you, it was seen as a protection against the overseeing power of state. So no one could fully understand the complexity of human society those days. But friends, that will become a thing of past. In the days to come, everything will be known to the scrutinizer. So that is scrutability. So of course, friends, state will always go for scrutinizing your behavior. Second is intimate. Friends, scrutiny is very intimate. That is, your devices snitch on you more than you know that machine. That the machines at your home know you more than you know that machine. Friends, in 1604, English judge Sir Edward Coke said that a person's home is his castle and fortress. But friends, in the digital life, your homes will never provide you protection from the overseeing power of state. State is able to scrutinize your behavior in your home by way of tracking the equipments that you have bought to your home. Your television set, your refrigerator, your air conditioners, your ceiling fan. Friends, these are all tracking devices because they are all internet enabled. So they will be knowing you even though you are not aware of it. So that's why, friends, I told you surveillance will become very intimate. Surveillance will become very intimate. And another point is that, friends, it is imperishable. Surveillance is imperishable. For example, we think that forgetting is a vice. We curse our poor memories when we lose our keys or forget to call our mother on her birthday. And in Plato's Phaedrus, a famous book, Socrates criticized the invention of writing because he feared that writing will destroy memories. But friends, in the days to come, what is going to happen is that all our human actions will be stored. All our human actions will be stored. The vast majority of what has been known, what has been spoken, what has been done will be recorded. In the digital world, much of what we do will be remembered. And friends, in the days to come, little we forget. Because all the information are stored in the digital world. For example, Google says, since 2007, every single word you type on Google search is stored. And Google know what you have searched at what point of time with what keyword. Because Google has already stored and archived all your behavior in their database. This is same with Facebook or any other, internet enabled things, all our actions are stored. So, forgetfulness, that will be a thing of past. Nothing, perishes in the days to come. That's why surveillance is imperishable. And friends, fourth point is predictability. Most of us understand that our past and present actions may be scrutinized by other people, say state or multinational companies or Facebook or Google will scrutinize our past action and our present action. But we don't know what happens in future. But friends, in the days to come, your future will be predicted. After all, no one knows what holds to our future. But in the digital world, increasingly, state is capable of predicting many aspects of our life with remarkable precision. Friends, already insurance companies use algorithm to predict whether and when we will crash our cars. So insurance company will offer you insurance packages according to your driving history. So if you have a particular crash history, they will reduce the insurance package that they offer. So because they predict that in the future you are more likely to crash your car. So employers predict if you might join a competitor. Financial institutions predict whether you will default on your loan plans. Officials predict which prison inmates will kill or be killed. Police use digital algorithms to predict crimes, offenders, and victims. Clinical researchers can predict whether you cheat your spouse or you divorce. Smartphone companies predict your location with accuracy. Service providers predict whether you are going to take the customers elsewhere. So friends, predictability will become possible because of surveillance. And friends, the last point you have to keep in mind, rateability. Friends, in the last few years, you may have used an online platform that crowdsource ratings for certain goods. For example, movies, Uber drivers, hotels, restaurants, dry cleaners. And you will book hotels in an unknown city by way of the ratings that is available on websites. You will pick a particular Uber driver by looking at the rating that he has received from Uber users. You will watch a movie based on the reviews that it got on cyberspace. You purchase a particular mobile based on the review that it got from users. So friends, each of our actions are rated. So your future will depend upon ratings. So in the days to come, you will get a husband or a wife just by looking at the reviews that you got on somewhere else on the cyberspace. A company will give you jobs based on the ratings you get on cyberspace. So this way, friends, in the digital world, it will be possible for each person to bear a holistic personal ratings. So in 10 years or 20 years, you will see, now you are 20 plus. So when you are in your 40s, friends, your success will be highly dependent upon your career success or personal success in life will be highly dependent upon the holistic ratings that you are able to secure on cyberspace. So your friendship, your colleagues, your business, your acquaintances, or whatever measures, your trustworthiness, reliability, attractiveness, charm, your intelligence, your strength, your fitness, so on, so forth. That all these things will be rated, and your world will be dependent upon the ratings that you receive in cyberspace. Friends, so this is what I wanted to tell you about, the surveillance society. State, technology, and surveillance. Now the lecture is ended. The floor is open for discussion, friends. You can have questions.